Well, good afternoon, friends. Jeff DeVerter here, Chief Technology Evangelist, Rackspace Technology, and I'm so glad that you are here for this Rackspace Live, guys. Special day today, and we are here to talk all about all things backup. Doesn't that sound awesome? Because tomorrow is World Backup Day. So, as you can imagine, a lot of what we're here to talk about is installing the virtues and the values in making sure you've got an amazing backup. Well, folks, as we get into today, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell me who you are, where you are. Got a couple of great guests to introduce you to shortly, but hey, they're waiting on yourself. You want to get a hold of us over here at the Cloud Talk or Rackspace program, solve at rackspace.com is how you can reach us. That email comes to not only me, but to the whole production staff. So somebody will pick it up and make sure that we respond. Hey, we have India in. Good evening to you there. I hope you had a wonderful dinner. It's probably worked out on yes. I don't know what the time change is there, but all right, everyone. We're going to kick it off here this morning or this afternoon. Morning. It is afternoon with a news article that I found. Of course, it's in keeping with what we're doing here in with World Backup Day, and it's the cloud market is set to experience impressive growth, driven largely by security, folks. This is a really great article. Producer Megan's got the link. She's going to drop it here at some point. We've got Michael from Houston here, by the way. We've got a couple of folks from San Antonio. That's fantastic. Welcome. Mr. Don is here. And but back to this article. So I did some search. Of course, it's world. We're heading towards World Backup Day. It's tomorrow. We're here today, a day early, to make sure that you're prepared to do your backups tomorrow. And as you look at the news articles that are out there, and you do a little searching around backup and cloud backup, significant things are going on there. And it's driven by a lot of different factors. Of course, it's driven by the fact that, hey, if something bad happens, you want to have a copy. But more and more is happening bad in a lot of different ways, whether it is cybersecurity issues, whether it is, I'm going to tell a story shortly about a racker who had a very terrible experience and required everything to be backed up. I also want to introduce or say thanks to James from Pennsylvania. James, did you know I was born in York, Pennsylvania? So I like Pennsylvania. Great South That's a little bit of detail you probably don't care. Anyway, so go check that article out. Megan has posted it in the chat there. But also, hey guys, head over to worldbackupday.com when you get a chance. Not while you're watching this, just give me your attention and take a look at what's there. It gives some strategies, some thoughts. You can take a pledge that you're going to back up your stuff. And there are, of course, a lot of different ways to back things up. Big welcome to Clark Kent's here. He's always here. I'll send you sure. And but head over to worldbackupday.com. Give you some ideas, strategies, tools, techniques, things you can do to think about. Make sure that you do consider when backing things up. Now, here at Rackspace and at the Solve program, we talk about all things usually as it relates to tech inside of industry and organizations. But a lot of this absolutely does apply to what's happening to us as just even individuals. So this isn't just for the big corporations, everybody. Hey, Poland is back. I don't know if this is the same person who was here yesterday, but hey, I'm so glad that you are here. Fun fact, my wife made Polish sausage the other night. Delicious. All right, and Cam, a previous racker. Cam, I'm so glad that you're here. Well, enough of me just, oh dear, I showed you a page of ones. Yes, I do green keying to key stuff out and make all the animations happen with, name that application, PowerPoint. That's how we do all these fun animations. All right, hey, got a couple of folks to introduce you to that I want to bring up on stage. The first is Michael Levy, and Michael leads product for us in and around lots of things that have to do with our transit, have to do with our private cloud, have to do with backup. And so, what a great person to have to come and talk about this. And I also have the CTO of a company called Jungle Disk. Now, Nathan is here. Nathan Anderson. He is about a month old into his role. Nathan's a previous racker as well. And Jungle Disk mission is well, they're on a security and a backup mission, and he's going to tell us all about that as well. Maybe it's a company you want to go check out for your own, whether it's a small business or medium sized or even personal, or how you can back that stuff up. All right, with that, it is enough of me. Ooh, get that off the screen. So let's go ahead and bring our guests up. And so glad that it's the same person from Poland. I didn't offend you yesterday. You came back. I'm so glad about that. Michael, welcome back to Rackspace Live.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You ready to do your World Backup Day dance tomorrow? You have to do it twice.
Do it twice. Okay, both to the
Yeah.
left and to the right. And then
Yeah.
Nathan, you and I have known each other when you were here at Rackspace. You disappeared for a while, and here you are. You resurface as a CTO of Jungle Disk. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Hey, let's start with what is it? What is a Jungle Disk?
What is it, Jungle Disk? So, a lot of you may know Jungle Disk, kind of the original brand from back in the day. Rackspace acquired it and later sold it off, and so we've been in the backup and DR for some period of time now. And then at some point late last year, Jungle Disk acquired several other brands, all in the backup and DR space. So kind of growing portfolio, growing fleet of backup offerings for companies. And so it's exciting times. A lot of
So
things happening here.
apparently, backup is it's a thing. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, kind of important, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start by telling you guys a story. So there is a racker that we work with here at Rackspace, and her name is Emily. We'll just leave it at Emily. And Emily decided that over the holidays, going on a vacation would be a great thing to do. So she and her fiance headed off to this very remote island off of Belize, and it sounded like an amazing place. And so this was over the holidays. It's December, and has an amazing time. Now, when she returned to the mainland, if you will, as she headed back into civilization where cell service worked and she cared about the internet again, her voicemail was full because, as it turns out, there were some other events that occurred during that time. You see, she lives outside of Boulder, Colorado. And for those of you not in the States, you may not have heard the fact that there were some amazing meaning bad wildfires that moved so fast up from some grasslands and up into some subdivisions and did some incredible damage in a short amount of time. And her house was one that literally burned to the ground. And so she got off of the little boat that brought her back from the island of no access to find her phone full of messages of people saying, "Hey, are you safe? We heard what happened." And she learned that every bit of her belongings were gone. If you ever wondered why you needed a backup, maybe this is an instigator to it. And so today we're going to talk about backup from the context of what you should be doing personally. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of those same tactics apply to us in our businesses and how we approach that. And while we look to and expect our corporate overlords to make sure that all of our technical stuff is taken care of from a backup point of view, there's always, I would say, some onus on us to make sure that the documents and the assets that we have, we can always have access to them regardless. So, with that as kind of kicking us into this, Michael, maybe I will bring you up here for a second, and let's just
Mhm.
talk about how companies approach this and different strategies for how you back up servers and file shares and all these
Mhm.
sorts of things.
Yeah. So, I just want to level set what backup is, and I'm going to make an analogy to consumer Apple products. Storage is like iCloud or something like Jungle Disk, which I used before, kind of a locker to put your stuff and then backup, is more an app in the Apple world like Time Machine. It is a storage product that you schedule regular copies or snapshots onto some sort of venue, right? And we could talk about where. And typically, if you have good software that's orchestrating that, you are basically copying the incremental difference day over day. So, what companies are doing and have done, they have basically tiered their data into different levels. So stuff that they wouldn't need immediately if something bad happened, something they would need right away. So they would store their information that's most important in a more expensive execution venue that can be recovered quickly. And then they take copies and hold them for longer periods of time, longer than 2 weeks in retention. They hold it 7 weeks. And the old way of doing it was putting it on a tape, the old large tape drives that would go under a mountain somewhere. But in a cloud world, if you want to recover from that, that'll take weeks. You want to recover now, the recovery time objective, the RTO, instantly. So you're kind of reconciling between how secure this backup is with how quickly you would need to recover. And we can talk later about strategies to figure out how you determine what backup mediums are best for you.
So that's excellent. Thanks for that. And you hit one of the key acronyms, recovery time objective. How long is it going to take you to get your stuff? You know, having everything backed up, but it taking 5 weeks to recover may or may not meet your business goals. So Nathan, there's another acronym, RPO. How does that play into this?
So the recovery point objective is basically how often you're taking backups. So if you have backups once a day and you have a failure today and you can get last night's backup, then that's the amount of time from that backup until now is the amount of time that you've lost data potentially. And so ideally you're taking backups often enough to matter to your business. And to Michael's point, backups are available quickly enough that you could recover them as fast as possible.
That's right. That's right. So RTO, RPO, when you think of this in the context of businesses, these are two of the main objectives that come into play. Now, Michael, you mentioned strategies because you don't necessarily have to do that full backup every time. You mentioned full and incremental as we think about strategies. There's also additional strategies about how to take, you know, certain snapshots and have them tucked away forever, that it's that golden copy, if you will, that you could always fail back to. There's, you know, strategies around air gapping, but maybe you can take us through a little bit of that. I know you've got some of that knocking around.
Yeah. You know what our architects say to customers is that they should pre-triage for a very bad day. So assume the worst case doomsday scenario and figure out what you need right away.
Yeah.
So the question is, you know, I said you have to reconcile kind of the isolation with the time to recover. So a golden copy, which is kind of like the golden mean, it is a technical term, but increasingly it's becoming this unachievable ideal. A true golden copy would be immutable. You write it once, it can never be corrupted. So if something bad happens, you can go back to this clean copy and put it in a clean room. There's a lot of nomenclature that's kind of being revised today in a much faster world. So a true golden copy would be a tape that's disconnected from the internet and put in a mountain, but it would take too long to recover. So now there's this idea of achieving app. Now an air gap used to be something literally disconnected. You can be logically disconnected. And you could achieve an air gap by having your production in one environment with one company, and then your backup with a different company like Jungle Disk or Rackspace.
Yeah.
So there's different technologies that are coming about. And I just want to say that the number one reason why our customers, and I'm sure Nathan likely, I'd love to know if he agrees, the number one reason why they need to recover is because of human error. They mess something up, they misconfigured something, it take too long to trace it, so they want to go back in time to the previous snapshot. So having the ability to recover quickly is paramount. However, in today's world with, you know, a lot of nefarious people sitting in their basement, launching ransomware attacks, geopolitical hostility, aggressive state actors, we're seeing a lot more cyber attacks, and we're, you know, especially ransomware attacks. And what's really scary is that the digital adversaries who launch these ransomware attacks, they're now attacking in the last year or so backups. So customers are coming to us for a third copy, and we're not complaining, right? They're opening their wallets to create a third copy, and this copy should be air gapped in a way that there's less of a propensity that it would get attacked, and then less likelihood that if attacked, be in some sort of court proceeding that could render you unable to recover. So, and we don't need to get into all the details now, but this is becoming more of a legal sphere, and the way and the cadence in which you back up and the permissions on when things can be deleted, when things can be recovered. There's a lot of really nuanced legal language to make sure that everything is locked down. So these are things like data locks and legal holds that in the past 6 months, everyone's talking about these concepts that have been around within the esoteric backup world, but now it's becoming commonplace and everyone's throwing these terms around because people are scared about ransomware and they don't know what to do. And
Right.
that's, you
Well,
know,
it makes,
companies like
yeah.
ours are trying to help, right?
Backup has certainly become very mainstream. So Nathan, how are you guys helping to solve for that, especially around those? And are you seeing the same trends around third copies?
We're absolutely seeing those same trends. What's the old adage? One is none. You know, one copy of your
Yeah,
data
two
means
is
you got
one, one is none.
yeah, two is one. And so we're definitely seeing that. Compliance has required backups for as long as we've been in this industry. So that's definitely not a new thing, but it's commonplace now. It's on the forefront of every news article you read about security, that ransomware and state actors and cyber attacks are on the rise in an amazing way. And Michael, we're definitely seeing what you're seeing. We're seeing companies who are looking to increase their footprint in backups and add geo diversity to their backups, add vendor diversity to their backups. That's definitely happening every single day. And I think the key to that is, as a company, solve all of these problems yourself. Quite likely, you need a partner. You need more than just a vendor. You need a partner, someone who can understand your business, help you understand your RTO objectives, and work with you on creating a solution that meets those needs. And that's where companies like Rackspace and Jungle Disk and others come into play, offering you multiple solutions for stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, Nathan, I know Jungle Disk and its heritage was a big user of it, especially while it was at Rackspace. You mentioned that Jungle Disk has been acquiring some other companies to help build out that service offering. Maybe take us through at a high level what some of these new
Sure.
capabilities are that come to the forefront.
So I think historically Jungle Disk was offered one of the first network drive products on top of S3. It was one of the original solutions to using an object store like S3 as a normal shared file system. And since then, it's evolved quite a bit and added lots of DR and backup capabilities, backing up workstations and servers and the like. And so Jungle Disk has seen the market evolve quite a bit over the last handful of years. So we have now other companies that offer similar kinds of products for all different kinds of use cases, whether it's databases or exchange servers. So there's 3 different companies that were acquired last year. Keep It Safe, Offsite Data Sync, and Live. And between the 3 of them, we offer we have more than 20 data centers across 8 countries around the world, including public cloud footprints too now. And so if you want, we offer all kinds of geographic diversity of storage. We have a bunch of data centers with folks like Iron Mountain, so now you can have your data in a mountain if you want, and in highly secured facilities, and as secure as you would like for that data to be. And it also depends on what kind of applications you're running, because the systems that most of us deal with in our home computers are only one small piece of the equation. Backing up Exchange, backing up databases, backing up complex business applications, you need more sophisticated software to do
Very
that.
specialized. Very specialized.
Yeah,
Now,
and so
Nathan,
that's where we can kind of fill that gap.
very good. Now, you piqued brought something to mind when you mentioned all the different countries you've got data centers in, which is obviously incredibly impressive. Is data storage locations really starts to matter, doesn't it, Michael? I mean, certain types of data in certain regions or geographies is pretty much bound to those areas. How does that play into a company's plan for backup and ultimately recovery?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can definitely, a lot of companies, based on their internal requirements, they want to achieve some sort of geographic diversity. However, in a cloud world where you need to recover quickly, you really don't want too much latency. And I can tell you something that our customers do. I have spoken before on this forum about our Rackspace Data Freedom offering, which is us delivering storage that's disaggregated but directly connected through our private network to the public clouds. So the hyperscalers over the past several months have had some pretty high profile outages. So a lot of companies are looking at getting that isolation through vendor diversity, like Nathan mentioned, but directly connected. So there is some geographic diversity. It may be in the same metro, but different buildings or different sides of the highway, or it may be different markets. The farther away you go, even though fiber speed of the light, you're making some extra hops, and you need to again triage nodes to figure out what needs to be closest. But definitely it's preferred to have that geographic diversity, especially if you are in, and I don't mean to get, morbid here, in, a major capital region, or a region that is, has more of a likelihood to see geopolitical strife, and to be able to have those backups outside. But just like having, we're talking a lot about backup, recovery is just as important. So you want to have that clean environment in which you could recover. So you're targeting the backup somewhere that's diverse geographically. You may want to have an environment that's kind of dormant or warm, ready to go to back up into, that's more proximate to the backup, in case, hopefully not, something renders the entire geography where the production is located, untenable. So the thing about, this is kind of a dismal discipline, because you do need to think of all the doomsday scenarios and how you can mitigate it. And honestly, it comes down to the customer and their profile. For instance, insurance companies, they're freaking out about everything going on, and they want to see a menu of all the ransomware remediation offerings, and they'll say, I'll take 10 out of the 15. There's a lot of duplicative spending out there, very emotional spending, because no one quite knows the landscape. So yes, lots of geographic diversity.
It also depends a lot on where where your customers are, not just where is your data located, but in many cases, where your customers live.
It's a great point.
And there's all kinds of data sovereignty concerns too. Companies in Germany can only have their data hosted within Germany, so their backups have to be in Germany, but in a different data center, different physical facility. So
that's right.
Again, it comes down to partnering with someone that can help you and work with you and guide you on the right solution for your business.
Right. And you want to think about that in two contexts. First of all, it's in and around the for the context of, how do you architect and design for a solution like that, but then how do you deliver that solution? And you don't even necessarily always have to think about those as the same organization. But in the context of you guys, Nathan, I mean, you guys really can answer for, with all of that stuff. You can provide a strategy, as well as provide the geographic diversity, but then also meet the geographic requirements. Again, Canada plays into the same thing. No Canadian PII for their citizens can be outside of Canada. Now, it's a pretty big geography, but it's got to stay.
Yeah. And we can make contractual agreements with companies in the EU, right? You can get your standard contractual clauses ironed out, and you have data portability where it makes sense with the right kind of provider. But in some geographies, you just don't even have that choice.
So you just said data portability, and it made me think, Michael, about some of the stuff that we're doing. You've already mentioned data freedom. You need to think about all of that data, not just the data in, we think about our file servers, but then you guys mentioned databases or Exchange. What about some of the data that exists out, in your Salesforce implementation, or other SaaS-based offerings? You have to have a solution to make sure that you have your data, because whose data it is, it's your data, and you have to be the right custodian of it. So, Michael, how else are we helping to architect customers? Maybe it's more about data freedom or other offerings that we might have at Rackspace.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you want to put any of your long-term retention, whether it's, lockdown backups that are immutable, or you have archival storage, you want to be able to have archive that is usable, that there's portability. So if you use the hyperscale public cloud, for instance, your info, and I think I've said this here before, is mixed within the cloud soup. And you're not only paying egress fees to pull it out, you're also paying retrieval fees, and you can wait 24 hours to see it. So finding a place where you can pay for the storage medium that you should be putting archival data on, which is lower tier, spinning disks instead of flash, lower cost basis. But it doesn't mean it should be locked down so you can't get to it, right? There are all these new technologies allowing you to orchestrate data. I remember about a decade ago, I was visiting a multi-tenant data center, and I saw a very popular .com website, and I saw, rows and rows, hundreds of petabytes of archival backup. And I was taking the tour, and they said, we're storing all this stuff, but we don't have the technology to make use of it. It's just everything's lost in plain sight. But I feel like a decade later, it's now important to allow archive to be usable and not pay more than you should be. And leaving your archive in the public cloud, that lag and those additional fees, you don't want it to be cost prohibitive every time you want your data to be usable, right? You shouldn't have to pay a toll every time you want to bring out the enterprise value, which, IP is supposed to be the most valuable asset you have, right? So being mindful of usable archive, I think that is something that's critical.
Just think of the early latency of data retrieval for a product as ubiquitous as Glacier, S3 Glacier. When that first came out, it was very slow to retrieve that data, and I think a lot of companies realized it wasn't as valuable. While it was cheap, and that meant that the data was somewhat air gapped, the low speed of retrieval made it kind of unusable. And look how expensive is an hour of downtime for your business. 10 minutes matters, an hour really matters.
When it all goes into the larger cloud strategy, right? As we think about how our companies, whether they're running inside of our own data center or a hosted data center, a cloud of choice, it gets even worse when you think about companies using multiple clouds, which they all effectively do. And this strategy around data becomes extraordinarily important. And, we think about data in this context of, there's the database people and they keep up after those stores, and there's the file share people, but that data is everything. And I've talked a lot lately about how that data, once it gets into a cloud, becomes this, you've got all these great tools, you can get all these other insights, but the one of my favorite words I've heard get used here today is custodian. How are we as representatives for your organizations, being a good custodian of that literally the most precious asset outside of the customer itself, I would think. Hey, just pause for a second. So we got a couple of folks who have popped in here throughout and I just want to recognize them. They're great to be here. So Megan, glad that you and Todd are having a great conversation over there. Good connecting old friends here on Rackspace Live. We got Guthier from Poland. I don't know if that's the same person from Poland before, but that's fun. And Ashley, of course, has come in. Ashley, glad you're here. You're a Racker now. I'm glad you are. So let's just we've got just a minute or two left, and I'll bounce back to Nathan. As we think about being a custodian of data, maybe some advice for how companies can think about that, not just how to exploit it, but how to be a good custodian of
it. I think you have to think about your contractual requirements, your compliance requirements as an organization. What does that obligate you to do, and how does that obligate your vendors, your partners? So I think, sadly enough, I'd say take a legal look at your data.
Great start. Where are you legally bound?
Yeah, not to get too morbid, but think about your business first and foremost, and all of your partners, all of your vendors should be helping you to achieve your goals as a business.
Yeah. Any last words as we think about custodianship, Michael, that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I think, figure out what's most important in that pre-triaging, and then also in terms of your intellectual property, what would you not want out there? What competitive differentiators do you not want taken away? Or if intellectual property is your product, you don't want the latest episode of your hit TV show to leak out there, or previous cuts of it. So I think that's it. It's, you're reconciling all these things: importance, compliance, security, cost, and everyone knows their data, their own data best, right? And then you can tell experts like us, what treatment each should get or break into those categories, and then you can have the best outcome in the event of what hitting the fan. So
that's right. That's right. Well, everyone, hopefully you will go out and visit worldbackupday.com. Individually, we need to do this for ourselves. Make sure that you have good quality backups of all of your data in all of these contexts we just talked about. But also, if you are not actively involved in this type of a role inside of your organization, well, find those folks that are, and maybe learn a little bit more about their strategies, and encourage transparency, and make sure that they're thinking about everything. So, Michael and Nathan, thank you so much for taking some time out of your, I know, very busy days. And it was great to have you on here. Nathan, it's great to catch up. It's been a while. And everyone, I hope you have a very amazing afternoon. I want to remind you that we will conclude the March Women in Tech tomorrow. And Nathan, guess who's going to be on tomorrow? Kat Dizon is going to be here, and another great ex-racker, but now just leading the charge as a co-founder and Chief Operating Officer over at Active Capital, helping to invest in some amazing startups. But we'll learn all about Kat tomorrow. But you have to show up at 8:30 Central Time here on LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. Just set your reminder and follow Rackspace, and that's where we'll be. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of today. And everyone have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.